Do you know someone who died from something they actively denied or mocked? What happened to them? My uncle got in a drunken motorcycle wreck and had to have half his jaw rebuilt. Didn't take his antibiotics because I never get sick. Well, he had never had his jaw rebuilt either. He died of the infection when it got to his brain. He died screaming in agony. That's my last memory of him. Holy shit, imagine dying because you refused to take a pill daily. Absolutely wild. I had a friend in high school who drove erratically. He was my close friend, but I never let him drive me anywhere and told him he drove too fast and took too many risks. He once followed in his own car and ran a red light downhill because it's 3 a.m. Who is on the road? He was so young, he died in a car accident driving erratically just shy of his 17th birthday. There were 3 other kids in the car, and the 2 in the back were almost unharmed. Dislocated shoulder and glass cuts from the windows. My friend died on impact and the girl in the front seat had a traumatic brain injury. Edit. For all the people wondering if this is from their school, it is crazy how many details line up with other instances but other states. Truly terrifying. Washington State. I am sure that was a tough thing for you to deal with while in high school. The interesting thing to me is the part about 3 a.m. I am a baker, so I am driving to work at that time, and the amount of people who blow through red lights is crazy. They really do think no one is on the road at that time, but there are plenty like me who have weird work hours. I took a roofing job one summer with no prior experience, and while I was in college, the boss had us running around on the roof with no harness. He complained I was too slow. I told him I didn't feel safe and felt there should be more protective measures. He fired me a week later. He hired my uncle, who had experience, and my uncle insisted he wear a harness. My uncle got his way. 2 weeks later, my former boss fell off the roof 2 stories high, but fell right on his ass in an upright seating position. You can imagine the damage. All his ribs were fractured and broke his spine. He is now paralyzed and lives in constant pain. Last I heard, he was trying to get medical assistance. Suicide. It's legal in my country, but he does not meet the criteria. My mother died of end-stage liver failure. It was caused by drinking. She went to her grave telling people she had some weird genetic liver problem. When faced with a gastroenterologist who knew better, she would not fess up. According to her, she could just get a new liver and continue living. Nothing the medical professionals or I could do to convince her that she didn't qualify because of life choices. She had not been sober long enough. When alcohol was not offered, she began turning to food instead. She ended up dying in hospice 6 years ago. What kills me is the amount of time I spent taking her to Dr. Apt's, trying to take her to meetings. But according to her, all of her liver problems were my problem, not hers. Same with my brother 2 years ago. Had no idea he was drinking so much. Got a call from my sil who asked if I wanted to say goodbye to him over the phone, as he only had minutes to live. Such a horrible waste when people die like this. Glad my dad, who is big in didn't have to deal with this. It would have been so terrible for him. The lawyer that fought against helmet laws for motorcycles in Florida was killed along with his ass in a motorcycle crash. They ran into a trailer or something. My dad refused to wear a helmet on his motorcycle, so whenever he talked about it, my sister and I would start discussing what we are going to do with our half of the life insurance money. I think it freaked him out, so he sold the bike last year. Thank God. Friend of mine always used to ride with an open face lid. We kept pushing him to get a full face, but I like to feel the wind on my face. During his accident, he hit the side of a car and was flung over the bonnet. When he hit the road, his lower jaw was ripped off. My uncle insisted that the link between smoking and cancer was a bunch of hippie do-gooder bullshit. Guess what he died of? My uncle thought that seatbelts were for cowards. He was a good driver. The drunk driver that killed him was not. There was a car commercial nearly 30 years ago that I still remember. There was a guy driving down a highway and the voiceover says, "You could be the safest driver in the world. Hands at 10 and 2, always check your blind spot." Then the guy gets passed by a car carrier full of wrecked cars and the voiceover continues, "But what if everyone else isn't?" A prominent American MLM person just died of colon cancer after refusing traditional treatment and documenting the whole thing. She was diagnosed at stage 4 in January or February, and they told her she would not live to October without treatment. She died a few weeks ago and she filmed a live a few days before saying the cancer was shrinking, when in reality she had been told she had days to live. The CEO of OceanGate denied warnings from others about his soon-to-be grave submarine. He didn't listen. He proudly stated in interviews that he cuts corners with safety. I didn't personally know them, but when I lived just outside of Yellowstone National Park, I met or saw quite a few people who thought the danger warnings were stupid, not for them, usually bison or hot springs. Was there when a person got gored by a bison 2 summers ago near Old Faithful. I think they lived, but there is an entire book cataloging deaths in the park, and a good number of them are people who just didn't listen to warnings and decided they needed to see how hot the clearly marked pool of boiling acid was or something. When I lived in Arizona, we had tourists who would die trying to hike in 120 weather, even though there is warnings on every hike, and every local will tell you that if you want to hike in the summer, you better start at 5 a.m. and be done by 10 a.m. People don't understand how hot the desert is. My uncle first went his eyes, then he could not walk, then his leg. Diabetes is a slow killer. You actively see someone die right in front of you, and unfortunately there is nothing you can do about it, especially if they refuse to change their eating habits. Was not necessarily mocked, but a few years ago my grandmother was extremely sick and in the hospital. She was not estimated to have much longer. My grandfather was having an affair with an old girlfriend in a different state and left my grandmother for dead. She became healthy enough to be moved to a nursing home, where she decided to file for divorce after 50 years of marriage. Within a year, almost to the day, she grew healthier, and he ultimately died of the same health issues she had back in the hospital. A coworker that became a good friend, she denied her fiancé, father of 2 youngest kids, was an abuser, even after a DV situation resulting in a broken nose, jaw, and lacerated spleen. She also denied she was addicted to meth and could stop anytime he provided her the drugs. So when she broke up with him, within 1 week was back. Always went back. He shot and killed the father of her 2 older kids, then shot and killed her, then ran over her body to make sure she was dead in front of her kids. In a Walgreens parking lot, he then committed suicide by cop. In one day, all 4 of her kids lost all their parents. This happened about 6 weeks ago and I am still reeling. My grandpa never outright denied the negative or mocked smoking, but he sure as hell was not going to let cancer get in the way of his lifelong habit. The last week of his life was his longest stretch without a cigarette, since he had started at 14, because he was in a medically induced coma. By the time he passed, he had been treated for 3 or 4 different types of cancers, with each one progressively harder to beat. We would eradicate it from one area only to have it appear somewhere else. And yet, he saw no reason to quit his pack a day of unfiltered Camels. There was a guy in Texas not long ago named Tommy Woodward. There was a flood, thus resulting in a 12-foot alligator lingering around. It was night, and this guy really wanted to go swimming. He was warned about the predator. His last words were, "Fuck the gator." As soon as he hit the water, he was taken. Gun safety. It was drilled into us from our dad as kids about safety of guns. Guns were locked up when not being used and bullets were kept separate. My granddad was less strict. We were at my granddad's house and he was showing his grandkids how to use a rifle. My dad was not keen on it as there was so many kids running around. Granddad told him there was nothing to worry about as there were no bullets in the gun. 3 of us had practice shots, including pulling the trigger. The 4th shot, a loud bang, and a bullet was fired into the shed less than a meter from where the adults were standing. No one was injured, but my granddad was left groveling to my dad. A few years back I was working at a barn and a thunderstorm rolled in. I was very uncomfortable with how close the storm was, and one of the other women there was very disdainful towards me about wanting to stay indoors until it passed, not wanting to touch the metal gates, etc. She thought that I was being ridiculous and paranoid. Literally the next day her aunt died of a lightning strike. So this isn't death, but I had a former close friend who was always posting shit about how vaccines caused autism. This was mostly while she was pregnant, so being the smarty she was, she did not get her son vaccinated. Guess who has nonverbal autism? She has been real quiet on Facebook about all that shit for a long time now. I have a friend who decided not to vaccinate cause she didn't want her kids to get autism. She has 5 kids. The only one without autism is the one that's fully vaccinated. I work at a ski resort. People think that we are so strict about ducking ropes because we are greedy or don't want people to have fun. The reality is that once you cross that rope, if you are not reported missing, we can't save you. The snow isn't groomed and you can fall right through it or even get pulled into a tree well. We will retrieve you in spring when the ice has thawed during Body Week. That American guy who went to North Sentinel Island to preach the gospel. Everyone told him not to because the tribe remained uncontacted for centuries and attacked outsiders on sight. They killed him immediately and buried him on the beach, where he is buried to this day. I work in an ICU as an RN, also worked in AMERG for years. From COVID denial to cancer to kidney failure, I have seen hundreds of people believe they are invincible. Alcoholism, speeding vehicles, fad diets, you name it, humans don't believe they can die. My own cousin was murdered by her boyfriend because she believed he loved her and denied the abuse. High school classmate of my mother, with questionable hygiene. She never believed anyone. be it female teachers, the school nurse, or even her gin about toxic shock syndrome, bitching to anyone how it's a conspiracy to make us buy pets. Guess who died at 17 from TSS? I had an acquaintance who died due to severe head trauma from a motorcycle accident. The accident occurred during a big motorcycle poker run he was participating in, a poker run protesting the new mandatory helmet law our state was enacting. Thanks for watching. Share your story in the comment.